If I told you that after 60, the greatest pleasure you could ever give a woman has nothing to do with your erection, would it shock you? Most men spend their lives believing that penetration is the only path to satisfaction, yet science shows that the majority of women never climax that way. The real key lies in mastering a single method during oral intimacy, one so powerful it can make her body tremble with an orgasm she thought was impossible at her age. I'm Dr. Mohit Khera, a urologist with more than 30 years of experience helping men restore their confidence, vitality, and intimate connection. I've seen thousands of patients, and I can tell you, the most memorable lovers are not the strongest or the youngest. They are the men who learn how to listen to a woman's body and respond with patience and skill. Here's the paradox. Men often think speed and variety show passion. But for women, the secret is the opposite. It's about slowing down, holding back, and building anticipation until her arousal becomes so strong it cannot be contained. That's why so many men miss the moment. They rush when they should pause. They change when they should stay steady. But today, I will give you the #1 oral pleasure secret every older man must know. The start-stop method. It's a simple yet proven technique that extends her arousal, heightens her sensitivity, and unlocks explosive orgasms that feel deeper, longer, and more powerful than anything she has experienced before. So stay with me, because in just a moment, I'll guide you step by step through exactly how to use this secret in a way that transforms not only her pleasure, but also your confidence as a man. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next powerful lesson on intimacy and men's health. And I'd love your feedback. If this topic excites you, type 1 in the comments. If you'd like me to improve or cover it differently, type 0 so I know how to serve you better. Now let's begin with the first and most important point. Why this truly matters after the age of 60. Because understanding the deeper purpose behind oral intimacy at this stage of life will give you the confidence and motivation to master the start-stop method with ease. 1. Why this matters after 60. Gentlemen, let me be very direct with you. At 60, 70, even 80 years old, intimacy is not over. In fact, for many couples, these years can bring the deepest connection of all. Why? Because by this stage in life, you are no longer trying to prove yourself, no longer rushing to impress, no longer distracted by the endless noise of career and obligation. What you have now, if you choose to embrace it, is time. Time to be present, to focus on your partner, and to enjoy every moment of closeness. That is why learning the art of giving pleasure, particularly through oral intimacy, becomes not just important, but transformative. I've spoken with countless men who tell me they fear their best years are behind them. They notice their erections aren't as strong, their stamina isn't what it used to be, and they quietly wonder if they can still satisfy their wives. I've also spoken with women who confess that after menopause, they assumed pleasure was gone forever, that orgasms were a memory of youth. And yet, when these couples learn how to connect differently, when they learn patience and the right techniques, something remarkable happens. Not only does pleasure return, it often becomes richer, fuller, and more meaningful than ever before. I'll share something personal. I once had a gentleman in his late 60s come to me, embarrassed and hesitant. He said, "Doctor, I don't think I can make my wife happy anymore." I asked him if he had ever considered focusing less on himself and more on her arousal. We spoke about techniques, about rhythm, about the importance of not rushing. 2 months later, he returned, smiling in a way I hadn't seen before. He told me, "Doctor, I never knew intimacy could feel this good at my age. My wife held me after and said she hasn't felt that alive in decades. That moment reminded me of something I want you to hold on to. Intimacy after 60 is not about performance, it is about presence, and presence creates satisfaction far greater than any pill ever could." So when I tell you this matters after 60, it's not just medical truth, it's personal truth. It matters because it restores confidence, it rekindles bonds, and it reminds both of you that passion has no expiration date. And once you understand this foundation, the next step is discovering the actual science of female arousal. And that is where the secret truly begins to unfold. 2. The science of female arousal. When we talk about female arousal, many men assume it's simple, almost mechanical, the way they themselves experience desire. But the truth is far more fascinating and, honestly, far more rewarding once you understand it. A woman's body is designed with layers of sensitivity, each one building upon the next. And when you take the time to explore those layers, you unlock something most men never get to experience. A partner who is not only physically aroused, but emotionally and spiritually awakened. That's when intimacy feels alive again, even after decades together. The clitoris alone is a marvel of nature. With over 8,000 nerve fibers, it contains more sensory endings than any other part of the human body. But here's where so many men make a mistake. They think, well, if that's the most sensitive spot, let me go there right away. What they don't realize is that the female nervous system doesn't respond best to sudden intensity. It responds best to gradual buildup, to anticipation, to patience. Imagine trying to drink from a fire hose. It's too much, too soon. The same is true for a woman's body. If you rush, you overwhelm her, and instead of pleasure, she feels discomfort or even pulls away. In my years of practice, I've watched women describe the journey toward orgasm like waves building in the ocean. You cannot create a wave by splashing the water harder. You create it by steady, consistent rhythm, by letting energy accumulate until it rises naturally on its own. That's why studies show the average woman needs 10 to 20 minutes of focused stimulation before she can climax. It's not because she doesn't want to. It's because her body is designed to respond to slow, steady, reliable stimulation. And gentlemen, this is actually a gift because it forces us as men to slow down, to be present, to learn the language of her breathing, her hips, her sighs. I often tell my patients, you don't have to be fast to be unforgettable. You have to be consistent. That's what creates trust in her body, and trust is the foundation of the kind of orgasm that shakes her to the core. And once you appreciate this science, once you see how her body craves rhythm over chaos, you're ready to apply it in a very practical way, starting with how you position her and yourself, so that the experience becomes comfortable, effortless, and sustainable. And that's exactly what we'll uncover next. 3. Positioning for comfort and success. One of the most overlooked aspects of oral intimacy, especially as we grow older, is comfort. Too many men focus only on the technique, forgetting that if either partner feels physically strained, the experience quickly turns from pleasurable to tiring. I've had countless men in their 60s and 70s confess that they tried to please their wives, but gave up too soon because their neck hurt, their back ached, or their jaw felt sore. And when that happens, it's not because they lack desire, it's because they didn't set themselves up for success from the very beginning. The truth is, good positioning isn't just a detail, it's the foundation. For her, lying on her back with a soft pillow beneath her hips creates a gentle lift that increases blood flow to her pelvic area. This small adjustment can make all the difference, allowing her body to respond more quickly, more deeply, and with greater sensitivity. For you, finding a position that protects your neck and jaw is equally important. Use pillows for support, or even sit in a comfortable chair at the edge of the bed so that you're relaxed and steady. Because if you're tense, rushing, or uncomfortable, you won't be able to maintain the consistency that her body needs to build toward climax. I often compare this to running a marathon. No runner would ever begin without stretching, finding the right shoes, and preparing their body for the long distance ahead. The same applies here. By setting up the right posture and support, you prepare both of you for an intimate experience that lasts as long as it needs to, without distractions from pain or fatigue. And let's be honest, nothing ruins the moment faster than having to stop because you're physically uncomfortable. What's beautiful about this stage of life is that you already understand patience. You've lived through decades of rushing and striving, and now you know the value of slowing down, preparing properly, and enjoying the journey. Positioning is your way of saying to her, I'm here, I'm ready, and I have all the time in the world for you. That reassurance, that readiness, is as powerful as any physical touch. And once you're both comfortable, you can finally begin the delicate dance of building arousal slowly and gently, starting not with the most sensitive spot, but with the subtle touches that awaken her body and prepare her for what's coming next. 4. The gentle beginning. If there's one lesson I've learned over decades of listening to women and guiding men, it's this: the way you begin sets the tone for everything that follows. Too many men charge in with intensity, thinking passion is measured by speed or force. But intimacy, especially oral intimacy, is not a race. It's a slow unveiling, a steady journey where every small touch builds anticipation, every breath deepens the connection, and every moment whispers, "I'm here for you." When you first approach her, resist the urge to head straight for the clitoris. I know it feels like the obvious target, but in reality, that's the quickest way to overwhelm her. Instead, begin with her thighs, her hips, the places that don't get nearly enough attention but are packed with sensitive nerve endings. Kiss her inner thighs softly, let your lips linger, let her feel the warmth of your breath. Caress her hips with your hands as though you're mapping out the edges of her desire. These early touches aren't just foreplay. They're a signal to her nervous system that something safe, something attentive, something deeply pleasurable is about to happen. As her body begins to respond, maybe her breathing shifts, maybe her hips rise slightly, you can begin to explore further. Gently trace the outer lips of her vulva, then the inner lips, with slow, deliberate strokes. This is not about performance or theatrics. This is about awakening her body, one nerve ending at a time. Think of it like priming an instrument before you play a song. If you rush, the music is off. If you take your time, the melody will be rich and unforgettable. And here's something personal I'll share. A patient once told me, "Doctor, I never realized how much she loved it when I slowed down. I used to think I had to be bold, but when I finally just kissed her thighs and let her wait, she told me it was the most aroused she'd felt in years." That story stuck with me because it shows how simple shifts, slowing down, touching lightly, listening to her cues, can completely transform the experience. So let this be your foundation. Start gently, build slowly, and don't rush the beginning. Because once her body is awake and craving more, that's when you'll be ready to introduce the power of rhythm and consistency, the very thing that turns a good experience into an unforgettable one. 5. Rhythm and consistency. There's a common mistake I've seen countless men make, and perhaps you've done it too. In the heat of the moment, we think variety is what keeps her excited. We switch patterns, we speed up, we slow down, we change directions, all in an effort to impress. But the truth is, most women don't climax from variety. They climax from consistency. Her body is wired to respond to a steady rhythm, a repeated touch that allows arousal to build like a rising wave. When you constantly change, you're interrupting the very momentum that would have carried her into orgasm. Think about it like dancing. If your partner is following your lead, she can only stay with you if your rhythm is steady. If you keep changing the beat, she stumbles, she loses balance, and the dance falls apart. The same is true in oral intimacy. Once you find the stroke, the pressure, or the movement that makes her hips lift, her breath catch, or her hand press against you, that's your signal. Stay with it, commit to it, repeat it again and again like a steady drumbeat that her body can trust. I remember one man in his 70s who told me, "Doctor, I thought I was supposed to surprise her, to keep changing it up. But when I finally just found what she liked and stayed there, she had the strongest orgasm of her life." His wife later confirmed it with tears in her eyes. She said, "For once, I could actually stay with the feeling long enough to let go." That story reminds us that consistency isn't boring. It's the very thing that makes release possible. As you practice this, don't overthink. Pay attention to her body, her breathing, the small signals she gives. They will tell you when you've found the rhythm that works, and when you do, hold on to it with patience. Trust me, she will thank you for it in ways words cannot express. And once you've mastered the art of steady rhythm, you're ready to take things even further. By learning how to build her arousal to the very edge, pause just before release, and then send her over with explosive intensity. That's the secret of the start-stop method, and it's where the real magic begins. 6. The start-stop method, the #1 secret. Now we arrive at the heart of it all. The number one oral pleasure secret that so many men overlook, yet it has the power to give a woman orgasms that are longer, deeper, and more explosive than anything she thought possible. It's called the start-stop method, or what some in sexual therapy call edging. And while the name sounds clinical, the effect it has on a woman's body is nothing short of extraordinary. Here's how it works. As you build her arousal with gentle rhythm and consistency, you will notice the signs that she's getting close. Her breathing quickens, her muscles tighten, her hips may begin to move with urgency. In those moments, when she is right at the edge, most men keep pushing harder, desperate to bring her over. But the masterful lover does the opposite. He pauses. He shifts his focus away from the clitoris for just a moment. Maybe he kisses her thighs, caresses her belly, or whispers something tender in her ear. This short interruption allows her body to rest without letting the arousal fade away completely. Then, after just a few seconds, you return to the exact same rhythm, the same pressure, the same stroke that brought her close before. What happens next is remarkable. Her arousal doesn't reset, it compounds. Each time you bring her to the edge and gently pull back, the tension inside her body builds higher and higher. And when you finally allow her to cross that threshold, the orgasm she experiences is not only more powerful, it's often longer, cascading in waves instead of a single moment. Many women describe it as overwhelming, even life-changing, because it reaches depths they've never felt before. I once had a patient tell me that after trying this with his wife for the first time, she clutched his hands afterward and said, "I didn't even know I was still capable of feeling this way." He told me with tears in his eyes that in that moment, he felt not just like a good lover, but like he had given her a gift no one else ever had. That is the kind of power the start-stop method holds. And the beauty is, you don't need complicated tricks or hours of practice to use it. You just need patience, attentiveness, and the courage to hold back when everything in you wants to rush forward. But while this method is transformative on its own, there's another dimension you can add. The skillful use of your hands to guide, support, and intensify her pleasure in ways your mouth alone cannot achieve. And that, gentlemen, is where we'll go next. 7. Enhancing with hands. When it comes to oral intimacy, many men underestimate the role of their hands. They focus so intensely on what their mouth and tongue are doing that they forget the simple truth. Your hands can be just as powerful, and when used together, they can create an experience that feels whole, balanced, and unforgettable. The beauty of using your hands is that they give you control, they give you presence, and they allow you to guide her body in ways that multiply every sensation she feels. Start with the basics. One hand can gently part her lips, giving you better access and helping you focus on the most sensitive areas with ease. This simple action alone shows attentiveness, as if you're saying, "I want to take care of every detail." The other hand can rest just above her pubic bone, applying light counterpressure that many women describe as grounding and deeply pleasurable. That gentle push enhances blood flow, adds intensity to clitoral stimulation, and gives her body the sense of being fully held and supported. And then there's the possibility of combining stimulation. For some women, the union of internal and external touch can elevate their arousal to a level they never thought possible. This doesn't mean forceful penetration or rushing your fingers inside. It means slow, deliberate, careful movements, perfectly in sync with the rhythm of your tongue. A single finger curled softly against the front wall, paired with steady oral rhythm, can send waves of pleasure through her entire body. The key is not speed, but harmony, the feeling that everything is working together with purpose. I remember a patient in his late 60s who once told me, "Doctor, when I used my hands along with my mouth, it was like she melted in front of me." She told me it felt like her whole body was being touched at once. That story has always stayed with me, because it captures the power of combining your touch. It's not about doing more, it's about creating unity between every gesture. And yet, even as you master the use of your hands, there is one more ingredient that ties everything together: an environment of care, respect, and attention to detail. Because without hygiene, comfort, and the right atmosphere, even the best technique can fall flat. That's what we'll explore next. 8. Hygiene. environment, and care. No matter how skilled your technique is, no matter how steady your rhythm or how perfectly you've mastered the start-stop method, none of it matters if the environment isn't right. Women, especially as they grow older, need more than just physical touch. They need to feel safe, respected, and cared for in order to fully surrender to pleasure. And it often begins with the little details, the ones men sometimes overlook. Cleanliness, for example, may seem simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Clean hands, trimmed nails, fresh breath. These are signs of respect. They tell her without words, "I value you enough to prepare myself for this mom." And when you take the time to care for these details, she feels protected, and protection builds trust. The setting matters as well. A calm, private, and relaxed environment tells her body it is safe to let go. If the room feels rushed, if the lights are too harsh, if the television is blaring in the background, her mind will stay distracted and her body will hold back. Intimacy requires presence, and presence is born from quiet. Dimming the lights, playing soft music, or simply making sure the two of you will not be interrupted can change everything. These choices may seem small, but they're the backdrop against which her pleasure is painted. And then there is your attentiveness during the act itself. Watch her body language carefully. If she tenses, freezes, or pulls back, that is her body telling you something is off. A simple pause, a soft whisper like "more or less," can turn a moment of discomfort into a moment of deeper connection. That kind of gentle check-in shows her that you're not only focused on her body, but on her feelings too. And often, that emotional security is what allows her to climb higher than she ever thought possible. I once had a couple in their 70s tell me that what transformed their intimacy wasn't a new technique, but the way the husband started slowing down, preparing the room, and asking small questions to make sure she felt comfortable. She told me that for the first time in years, she felt not just desired, but cherished. That is the real power of care. And when that foundation of hygiene, comfort, and attentiveness is in place, the climax itself takes on a whole new meaning. Because what you do after her release is just as important as what you do before. That's the part most men overlook, and it's exactly where we're heading next. 9. After the climax. Many men make the mistake of thinking that once she reaches orgasm, their job is done. They pull away too quickly, almost as if the finish line has been crossed and the race is over. But intimacy is not a race, and for a woman, the moments immediately after climax are often just as important as the buildup itself. This is when her body is vulnerable, sensitive, and deeply open. If you vanish too quickly, she may feel abandoned or even used, but if you linger with gentleness, you create something far more meaningful. A sense of safety, of tenderness, of being truly cared for. After she climaxes, her body needs time to settle. Instead of stopping abruptly, ease off gradually. Let your touch soften into lighter strokes. Rest your cheek on her thigh. Place a hand on her belly in a calming way. Whisper words of reassurance, telling her how beautiful she is, how much you enjoyed pleasing her, how much you love seeing her in that moment of release. These gestures may seem small to you, but to her, they can mean the world. They signal that she is not just an object of desire, but a cherished partner, and that intimacy for you is not about performance, it's about connection. I remember one man in his early 70s telling me that he used to finish and roll over, believing his wife was satisfied enough. But one night, he chose to stay, to hold her, to kiss her softly as her breathing slowed. She looked at him with tears in her eyes and said, "You made me feel young again." That story has never left me because it proves what I have always believed. What happens after climax is the glue that holds intimacy together. This stage is also when her body is most receptive to touch that isn't sexual, when gentle caresses and simple closeness can strengthen the emotional bond. It's when intimacy transforms from a physical act into a shared memory of comfort and love. And gentlemen, if you can master this part, she won't just remember the orgasm, she will remember the way you made her feel safe, valued, and alive. But of course, intimacy is not only about her. If you want to give this level of pleasure consistently, you must also take care of your own stamina, circulation, and vitality. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. 10. Strengthening yourself. Gentlemen, I want to speak honestly here because I know what many of you quietly think about when it comes to intimacy after 60. You wonder if your body can keep up. You notice your stamina isn't what it once was, that your circulation feels weaker, or that your energy fades sooner than you'd like. And in those private moments, you may question if you still have what it takes to give your partner the kind of pleasure she deserves. I want to reassure you, yes, you too. But just like preparing her body for arousal, you must also prepare your own body to perform with confidence and endurance. The foundation of your strength begins with circulation. Erections, stamina, even the ability to sustain oral intimacy without fatigue all depend on healthy blood flow. Science has shown that nutrients like L-citrulline, naturally found in watermelon, can support nitric oxide production, which relaxes blood vessels and improves circulation. I've had patients who began adding this to their daily routine and reported feeling more energetic not only in the bedroom but throughout their day. Herbs such as tonkat ali, fenugreek, and nettle root have also been studied for their ability to support testosterone balance, energy levels, and overall vitality. And while supplements can never replace lifestyle, they can be powerful allies when used wisely and under a doctor's guidance. But there's more to strengthening yourself than just nutrition. Gentle exercise, walking, swimming, light strength training, builds endurance and confidence. Sleep and stress management play equally important roles. I can't tell you how many times I've seen men restore their intimate energy simply by making small but consistent improvements in these areas. The truth is, you don't need to be 25 again to give her pleasure. You just need to be the strongest version of yourself today. I once had a patient in his late 60s who admitted he avoided intimacy out of fear of running out of gas. We worked on his health together, adjusting his diet, adding light exercise, and discussing natural supports. Within months, he came back with a smile and said, "Doctor, I didn't just last longer. I felt like I was fully present again." That presence is what your partner craves most. And when you take care of your body this way, not only do you give her more pleasure, you also strengthen the most important part of all, the emotional bond between you. And that's exactly where we'll go next. 11. The emotional bond. As men, we often think of intimacy as something physical first. But the older I get and the more couples I've counseled, the more I've seen that the deepest pleasure isn't in the body alone. It's in the bond between two people. After 60, what truly makes intimacy powerful is not just the orgasm you help her reach, but the way she feels held, wanted, and connected to you through it. When she senses that you're not only there to give her physical satisfaction, but also to share closeness, trust, and love, the experience takes on an entirely new meaning. I remember a patient in his early 70s who once told me, "Doctor, for years I thought the point was just to make sure she finished. But when I finally slowed down, looked her in the eyes, touched her hand, and reminded her how much I loved being there with her, everything changed." She said it was the first time in years she felt like we were making love instead of just having sex. That confession moved me deeply because it captures the essence of what so many couples long for later in life. It's not about proving performance anymore, it's about proving presence. Women especially thrive on emotional connection. When you whisper encouragements, when you stay steady instead of rushing, when you smile at her as she trembles in your arms, she doesn't just experience a release of tension, she feels cherished, valued, and safe. And safety is what allows her body to let go completely. This is why the emotional bond can make the difference between an ordinary orgasm and an earth-shattering one. Her heart and mind must be engaged for her body to surrender fully. Gentlemen, think of this bond as the invisible thread that ties every touch, every kiss, every pause together. Without it, even the most perfect technique can feel empty. With it, even the simplest caress can bring her to tears. The beauty of being over 60 is that you've lived enough life to know that love, care, and tenderness are not weaknesses. They are strengths. And when you bring those strengths into the bedroom, you create a space where passion becomes timeless. And once you understand how this emotional connection amplifies every aspect of intimacy, you'll see why the final message ties everything together. A reminder that the #1 oral pleasure secret is not just about technique, but about a whole way of being with your partner. And that's exactly where we'll finish. 12th final message. Gentlemen, as we come to the end of this journey, I want you to pause and take in what we've explored together. Over the years, I've sat across from so many men who felt uncertain, who believed their best days of intimacy were behind them, who quietly wondered if they could still give their wives the kind of passion and pleasure they once did. And yet, time and again, I've watched those same men discover something powerful. Intimacy after 60 can be even more fulfilling than in their youth, if they learn to approach it differently. We began with why this truly matters after 60, because at this stage of life, intimacy is no longer about rushing or proving. It's about slowing down, being present, and giving your partner the kind of attention that makes her feel alive again. We talked about the science of female arousal, about patience and consistency, about how her body needs rhythm and reliability to climb toward orgasm. We looked at positioning, the importance of starting gently, and the magic of rhythm that transforms good moments into unforgettable ones. And then we arrived at the heart of it all, the start-stop method, the #1 oral pleasure secret that can lead her to explosive, powerful orgasms she may have thought were gone forever. But we didn't stop there. We explored how your hands can enhance her pleasure, how hygiene and the right environment show care, how what you do after her climax can mean more than what you did before, and how strengthening your own stamina and circulation makes you a more confident lover. Finally, we uncovered the truth that ties it all together, the emotional bond. Because without that bond, technique is empty. But with it, even the simplest gesture becomes meaningful. If there's one message I hope you carry with you, it's this: intimacy has no expiration date. You are not too old, and she is not beyond pleasure. With patience, rhythm, and genuine attentiveness, you can give her experiences that shake her to the core and bring the two of you closer than ever before. So as you close this chapter and step into your own bedroom, remember that the secret isn't about tricks, it's about presence. It's about slowing down, listening, and caring. And when you do, you'll not only give her unforgettable pleasure, you'll rediscover yourself as a man who still has the power to love deeply, passionately, and without limits.